Yo, it's your man Jam C.
Yo, it's your favorite Republican out here, Republican.
We out here doing what we do. We going vocal as always, doing our one twos. We got a special guest in the house tonight. His name goes by the name of Mr. Khalif Jackson. Khalif, how you doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Holding up, maintaining, holding down the fort. You know how it is in this lovely life of ours, especially if you got some kids and working and trying to hold it down.
Nah, I got you. I got you. I got you. Khalif is the founder. Correct me if I'm saying this wrong too, Khalif. You are the CEO and founder of Greyson Scholars, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Can you give us a little bit of a background? Give us somewhat of your background first off, before and we could talk into what led you into what your venture is now.
Okay. Born and raised in Newark, um, and went to St. Benedict's. From St. Benedict's, found myself at Boston College, came back home, um, wanted to get involved with mentoring because it was something that I felt like helped me through my college experience. And I knew that what I had there, I wanted to bring into the world. So through a few different professional experiences, I found myself trying to create a mentoring program that I felt like would be beneficial to, young people. And I just couldn't get around getting it off the ground because I felt, how am I going to leverage mentoring in a world where, you got big brothers, big sisters, boys and girls club, all the things. But it wasn't until, I got with my wife and we had our son. And I know a lot of people say the cliche thing of like once you have a kid, things kind of change and turn things around. And as fate would have it, I planned it right before the pandemic. But I found some success during the pandemic with having like a virtual mentoring model, working with some of the students that I was teaching at the time, and then found myself working with some people, young adults and students included from like out of state. And from there, I just was like, I think I could really, do this. And here I am now, 5, 6 years later, and we have a stable organization, and we also work with reentrants. So I'm just trying to continue to scale up. Of course, I want to make a difference and impact the community, but I also, wanted ownership and finding ways of, securing some some stability financially, for my family, or something that I could pass down, to my son as an heir.
So let me ask you something. I'm just kind of dumb it down in a sense. What is a mentor?
Good, good, good. Basically, a mentor is helping whoever wants that help how to get from one point to the next. So I know, going to school is not necessarily for everyone. And I recognize that I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. You know what I mean? Even when I was teaching, I felt like I was more of a mentor than a teacher because the subject itself isn't as important as, the knowledge that you can get from it. So a mentor pretty much is just somebody who an individual can confide in, and either they can push the person in the right direction, or they can be a sounding board for the person to help them kind of connect the dots. But I like to coin the phrase or the term mentor, not mentor, but mentor, because, tour, play on words, you know what I mean? Helping a person navigate through life and, figure things out. That's pretty much what a mentor is. And I think every step of the way, you have different people who can mentor you in different things. You know what I mean? You can't go to a fireman and ask them how to be an investment banker. You know what I mean? And that
Hmm.
fireman might know a few things, but for the most part, you got to go to the source of information where people are experts in that area. And I know that I'm no jack of all trades in that regard, but the whole reason I created the program was because I knew going to college and getting an education in general is not so much about the knowledge that you get in, it's from the people and the networks that you build where you can step into different arenas through the people that you meet. And my thought with the mentoring program was to help different people get connected along the way. If I don't have the answers, I know somebody who does, so I can connect, a young person or a young adult to whatever avenue or whatever person that has the knowledge that they need. I hope that answered the question.
It did. It did. My next point, my next question would be is going to be: do you think it take a special kind of person to be a mentor?
Honestly, no, you don't have to be that special. I just think you have to be willing to share your life experiences. As I mentioned, I didn't see myself being able to get into the work of, working with, the reentrant community, folks who are coming out of jail on parole, trying to find themselves navigating through society and getting recidivized. But you could be a person who is in prison, you could be a person who came from prison, you could be a drug user, uh dealer, all the things. Mentors come in all shapes and sizes, you know what I mean? It just depends on what experience or expertise the person who needs your advice is in. Ideally, of course, I created the program for it to be, positive and for me to help people become, constructive members of society, but you could be a mentor in every capacity. So there's nothing special about a mentor. It's just if someone is willing to take somebody else under their wing, then you got it. And then in some cases, you don't have to be willing to do it. Somebody's still watching you, whether you know it or not, whether you're making good choices or bad ones. You know what I mean? You're a mentor to somebody. You just don't know you are.
Well,
I was
so
just good,
no,
man.
go ahead, Luke. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that that within itself, taking somebody under your wing, you would have to be a special person to kind of do
Yeah,
that because we
yeah,
come from such a selfish society nowadays,
yeah.
and everybody's so antisocial where people are really not integrating with people like that or willing to take on other people. Um, and trying to guide them in a way that would make sense. When I think of a mentor, I think of someone like when you hit a crossroad and you need somebody to give you sound advice. This mentor will stand in the gap of that and be like, "Yo, nah, this is look at it like this, or maybe you're doing it the wrong way, but how about let's go down this avenue." You understand what I'm saying? Like
For
because
sure.
and I think that when people be like, "Well, when I did it, it worked for me like that." Well, every experience is going to be different. Just because it worked that way for you doesn't necessarily mean it's going to play out the same way for me. But
Exactly.
your experience in doing it will help somebody else along the way. You know what I'm saying? So
For sure.
I definitely agree. I think that's pretty dope that you can do that. Let do how what's your demographic of
That was
wait
my question. Yeah, like
Good question.
what do you age groups do you start?
Good
And
question. So, ideally, the age groups that I start with, elementary and middle school age, that was the goal. You know what I mean? Because for anybody who is pursuing entrepreneurial endeavors, kind of gotta, button down on your population, and you have to have that demographic, especially when you're looking for grants or when you're looking for people to say you're an expert in a certain area. So, given my role as a full-time director of student services, I work in that population. You know what I mean? K or first through eighth grade. Um, Specifically having taught in middle school between sixth and eighth grade, although um, my program has sort of shifted its focus to working with, re-entrants, because that's the contract, that I was afforded to get through the Department of Justice and Corrections in Pennsylvania. So in that respect, when I'm working in that community, it's just, the demographic is anyone who is on PA state parole and could use some help looking for mentorship or workforce development. I'm still perfecting that curriculum. But when we're talking about working with youth and children, that demographic and that age group capacity is, like I said, middle school and elementary school, primarily first through eighth grade.
That's such a. It's like okay. That's like a almost a open. That's like a open scope. So like, all right. So let me say this: when you talk about mentoring, you're now doing reentry. So with the
Yes,
reentry, they do offer some sort of like social assistance,
right.
things of that nature. Do they do like job assistance, work programs, or maybe people who need therapy, or or housing, things of that nature?
See, that's the challenge. So there's a few different contracts that are out there. The only contract that we have is the mentoring capacity and the workforce development capacity. So, unfortunately, as a smaller business with, only the virtual capacity intact, and I don't yet have, a building to call my own, still building, just volunteer basis and things of that nature. From the
Mm-hmm.
workforce development capacity, all I can do is, same as I'm doing with mentoring, is provide them with the knowledge and the education of going through the process of finding, securing, and understanding what it is to be a productive member of society as a worker. You know what I mean? So helping them do the homework, doing some of the follow up with them or for them, resume building, just understanding, how to be a model citizen. um, I have that capacity. Whereas there are other organizations that are able to pretty much bring them on and pay them as a trainee for whether it be like HVAC and things of that nature. So
Mm-hmm.
in my position, what I'm trying to do is, as the CEO, I should be just scaling out the vision, and I should be finding people who could do the day-to-day tasks, whereas, because I'm still growing, I'm doing a lot of that myself. So from that capacity, I'm trying to network and build bridges and relationships with some of those other organizations, so that when I'm working with the reentrants, you know what I mean, if there's not a simple job that they can walk into or apply to themselves, like Wawa, Target, Home Depot, all of these organizations that work with second chance, justice impacted people, I'm connecting with these other organizations that can allow them to get paid while they're training.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point, growing to be that organization myself. You know what I mean? I didn't even see myself being able to work with the reentry community until years down the line. I put it in my strategic plan. It's something I wrote down. You know what I mean? I still want to work with juvenile youth, but I got blessed. I don't even know how ended up, in this space. I just wrote it down in the vision, and then, I found myself getting connected with someone who could help me in that position. Took about a year or two, and then here we are.
Do you? I've had experience with working with kids at one point, right?
Hmm.
And one thing that I know, and you could confirm or you know agree or disagree, that children, youth, they tend to listen to a total stranger more than they would listen to their own parents. Do you find that to be uh, accurate?
Indeed. And not even more than their own parents, more than someone that they are in close proximity to all the time. That's kind of why I think Excuse me. That's kind of why I think when I was in the classroom, I taught the subject. You know what I mean? I've worked with them with math or science or any of the subjects that I've taught. And sometimes the learning needs to halt because either the behaviors that they're displaying is too problematic or it's something that either went on during the day or a comment or behaviors are happening where it's like, now we got to address this. And at most points, schools are run by leaders who just have a bottom line of this is the subject, this is what you're supposed to teach.
Sure.
You know what I mean? You got a minute or two to kind of go over that, but the bottom line is the bottom line. And it's kind of like that's a part of the problem. You know what I mean? They need some of this social emotional development. But when I'm trying to give them those nuggets, it's sort of in one ear and out the other. And you don't see the progress until you're not working with the kid anymore. But
Hmm.
when someone else comes into the classroom, whether it be an administrator, a dean, or someone else, they have a different level of attention for that person because they're not seeing that person all the time. So, they mean business, let alone if somebody like you or uh, Mill walked in the building and just started talking to them. It's like, oh, let me button up because this person doesn't know me from a can of paint, yet here they are pouring into me in a way where I expect my teacher to give me this uh what do you call it? This lecture. Try not to make them lectures, but I expect my parent to tell me what I should and shouldn't be doing. But when you have a complete and total stranger that's just, giving antidotes of success to the youth, they take heed to that. So I figured that was why I really wanted to build that model because it's like I can connect you with somebody who you've never met before, but they have experience in something you say you're interested in, even if it's as simple as wanting to be a nail tech or a hairdresser. And this random stranger will give you their time, give you their number, give you their email, and you can ask them questions and they'll be willing to share with you some of those things and their experiences at what it was they were doing when they were your age. Those type of things, those things land heavy for kids, man. So much more than your parent telling you this is what I used to go through. They're hearing it, but they're not buying it like they would from a complete and total stranger.
No,
So
I think that's a fact because I think about even as a kid myself growing up and some of the things my mom would say to me as a kid, it didn't hit then, right? And then I got older and then life hit. And then I got my own kid. And now I'm
mm,
like, yo, moms used to say this all the time. Now I find myself saying
Yeah,
what she
right,
was saying. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
I totally agree exactly with what you're saying.
and
Mel?
that's the thing that we have in common. We're all the three of us are parents. So my
Hmm.
Khalif, and I know Republican probably got different take on age or maybe the same. We talk about kids, problematic things they may go through, and even up to an adult. And one of the things that I learned for self, and I'm gonna ask you this question, Khalif, in your personal opinion.
Hmm.
At what age do you think self accountability should start?
Honestly speaking, self accountability should start as early as I want to say between 4 and 6 years old. And the
Really?
only reason I'm saying that is because I have a 4 and 6 year old right now.
Mhm.
And it's just like, it doesn't have to be all robust and complicated. It just needs to be, you did this, that you did this. It comes with some natural logical consequences. And I know sometimes I'm selling wolf tickets to my kids about, those empty threats of like, if you don't do this, I'm going to take this away, or, I'm gonna put the toys up if you don't, you know what I mean? But there are some instances where even at those young ages, it's like they have to understand very early risk and reward or the consequence for not listening to directions that we as their parents and authority figures are given. So I say that in a very foundational understanding of like self accountability. But when it comes to like probably what you mean in terms of like more uh more for lack of a better phrase, more serious accountability, for sure by the time you're a teen, like 13 years old, you really need to understand that you have to be accountable for your actions. And your actions have real consequences. So you have to start making decisions that are going to elevate you into the person that you're becoming, because you don't really understand who you're becoming at, those tender ages that I was saying. But I think too often we think that a 13-year-old is going to be okay when we start taking life serious at 13. Nah, we got to train these kids as early as those tender ages for understanding, like, yo,
I
risk
agree.
and reward. And I think a lot of times we're not doing that in, I want to say, in our community, where we see certain behaviors, we see certain kids acting in certain ways, and we just, they're just a kid. Like, no, talk to that child like they're an adult. Obviously don't have adult expectations for them, but we can have very serious conversations very early with kids to make them be aware. We can ask them questions. We can enhance their curiosity. And I think it's important for us as parents and as the village to pour into that.
What about the fact of like, do you think that parenting of old, like the way we probably grew up and the way we
Hmm.
were raised, do you think those same method of parenting work in this day and age? Like it's the kind of thing of like, don't you don't you be out there smoking, right?
Right. Right.
But I'm lighting up a Newport. You understand what I'm saying? Or
Yeah.
don't you do what I do, but do as I say, kind of
Right.
thing. I
Right. Right.
think
Right.
today's society is a more they're more visual learners, right? And
For
so
sure.
you need to show them and lead by example in order for that type of parenting. I think nowadays it probably would be more effective than the way our parents did. Would you
Well,
agree or disagree?
let me try real quick. But Lou, you gotta remember, is the parenting style today is more endorsed to be laxed because we were really like,
Hmm.
everything was drilled into us. So maybe
Or kicked into us?
yeah, so a lot of
Facts.
and the discipline was sometimes it was backed by a spank. It was sponsored by an ass whooping. So so it's a little different now because now the sponsorship now gets you arrested. You know what I'm saying? So it's a
Definitely.
little bit,
Mm,
and so kids are more but everybody. The thing that we all have in common is we always think the grass is green on the other side.
right.
No, definitely, definitely. I
Well,
just and one more thing to interject. Well, you go there, what you're gonna say, Khalif, and then I'm gonna take it somewhere
I
else.
was gonna say, I think I had two thoughts because I don't think it's happening. Like you said, the way we were raised and the way things were ingrained in us, I don't think it's happening in a lot of cases. And yes, this generation is visual learners, but I think what we need is to bring back the old style of parenting with a remix. You know what I mean? Like, I'm all for gentle parenting and being able to let my kids have a voice, but not to the point where I'm going to go against everything that I was raised on. And if I'm going to allow you to have a voice, but your voice comes with a little bit too much sureness, I gotta, what's the Bible verse? Spare the rod, spoil the child. Like, I'm
That's
not
it.
gonna abuse my kid, but at the same time, I'll be a fool to let them touch a hot stove and not think that they won't get burnt. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, yeah, gentle parenting for sure, where I'm going to allow you to have emotions. I'm not going to beat you, or I'm not going to yell at you because you feel some type of way and you want to express that. I have a responsibility, though, to show you the way you think you're going to express yourself needs to have, you got to do that in between the lines. You know what I mean? You can't assert your aggression to me as your father the way you would to someone who's a peer. But I also have a responsibility to let you learn through that. I think two things can be true. There was ways that we were raised that were challenging because we were raised by some of us, our grandparents and our parents who were affected by coming from the silent generation. We
Mm,
weren't allowed to have a voice. And a
correct.
lot of times, especially in our community, that affects the way you show up in your professional life. You don't think your voice matters in your workplace, or now you find yourself shrinking under pressure or people to titles. And then others of us were, um, raised with that level of freedom of expression. And now you have no respect for authority. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Everything takes balance. You know what I mean? There was some benefits that came from the silent generation because we were taught to be workers. There's some benefit in being a free thinker as a millennial, but you got to know that free speech is going to come with its consequences, and you got to be ready and willing to adapt to that. So I like to think as myself as not a chameleon, but I want my kid to be able to understand the duality of both. Like there is no absolute, but God, you know what I mean? Everything in between that, you got to play by the rules wherever you are. And the
mm,
rules are different by state, even. You know what I mean? What we can do here, we can't do in California. What we can do in California, we can't do if we go to another country. And we are too limited to how things go in our radius. You know what I mean? Some of us, I got friends, I'm sure you guys do too. Some people never left Essex County. Some people never left Newark. You know what I mean? And they don't know life in Newark in one hood is different than life in Boston or Brooklyn. But
mm.
you know what I mean? These things you're not privy to unless you are dealing with worldly people. So,
I wanted
yeah.
to. I think that you just made a great point. Whereas though demographically, there's rules, there's guardrails demographically wherever you go, and to put another layer on top of that, those guardrails thin up. They get even thinner when you add race into it. You
Mhm.
understand what I'm saying? And
Indeed.
you really can't, you really got to be careful on how you govern yourself in certain places. I do think that, and I will say this, that I feel like, and again, I don't have that much interaction with a lot of kids nowadays as much as I did outside of my own and nieces and nephew family. I just feel like a lot of kids are being raised with parents that want to be their friend as
Hmm.
opposed to being their parent. And
Mhm.
then while they're being their friend, right, they tend to lose control, right? You get some parents trying to be their friend, and I'm a big advocate of this. Stop giving these kids, just because you didn't have it, don't mean these kids should have it,
Yeah,
right?
that's a
I
fact.
grew up without it, so I'm gonna make sure they have it. But all you're doing is making them a bigger piece of shit. You
Yeah.
understand what I'm saying, for lack of better words? But you
Yeah.
because the world isn't like that. You
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
what I'm saying? The world isn't going to be kind and gentle to you when you get out there, or the world ain't going to give you shit that they didn't have. You understand what I'm
Hmm.
saying? You got to go out here and get it yourself. And I think parents do a disservice with kids by wanting to shelter them as long as they possibly can, right? Because the world we live in is very cruel and unforgiving. You
Mm,
understand? And it's going to be a rude awakening when they get out into this world and not have the understanding of how to deal with this world. And I think your program will kind of help aid and guide some of these kids, hopefully a lot of them, in a more of a right direction. Because if you
Yeah.
can get these kids right at an early age and guide them in the right direction, then this reentry program wouldn't be much of a need, because
Mm.
they wouldn't have never took that turn. It was I seen an episode of Oprah. This was years ago when Oprah was really, really popular. And the episode was about, this guy was talking about, it was a certain time in my life where this happened and then my life just pivoted, right? And I'm pretty sure everybody got that pivot point in their life, right?
Mhm.
Some either went down a dark alleyway or some went to the golden arches. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it
Yeah.
just they just went two different directions, just went in another direction. But if they had someone there that can mentor them and speak into them, whereas, oh no, yo, nah, bro, that ain't right. Nah, bro, look at it like this. Or nah, bro, dig deep into what you feeling right now, because that's going to make you persevere through whatever it is that you're going through. Because that feeling, you don't want to feel it again. So get through it and make sure that you'll never come back to that feeling again. And that's how you're going to keep overcoming these obstacles when life starts to beat you up.
Yeah, I agree.
Facts.
And Khalif, like here's the thing, like, and I agree with Lou. The world could be a cruel place, but the world could be beautiful at the same time. It all depends on your outcome or your
Yeah.
income. I'll say what you put out. But we talk. He says something that I want to piggyback off that. When you think about the youth, and even through reentry, do you how do you get them to become, or if they become goal oriented, and like, and how, what pivotal age do you think having a goal setting, I guess a goal setting attribute, like what age and how pivotal you think that is, especially in our communities?
Yeah, in our community especially, the goal should like I said with my 4 and 6 year old, I think having a conceptual understanding of needing goals to be successful, there's no age outside of when you don't know how to uh talk and read where it shouldn't be applied. You know what I mean? I think that because it's the group that I work with, primarily middle school, as I was saying in the demographic, even though, of course I do work with middle school, but primarily, middle school, I've done work with high school and young adults as well. But um I think that it's pivotal for at the middle school level where you're just like in them preteen stages, you
Mm-hmm.
don't need to just understand goals, but you need to understand SMART goals. And it's funny, as a person in education, it's like I question my knowledge of the things that I know all the time because I like to read a lot, and I'm into all of the the self-help and philosophical thinkers. And it's like the man who knows he doesn't know anything at all is the one who knows a lot, or whatever, however that
Hmm.
goes. But like
Hmm. Hmm.
smart goals for a sixth or eighth grader who doesn't know what that is, they need to make sure that their goals are specific. They need to make sure their goals are measurable. They need to make sure that they can analyze their goals. They need to make sure that their goals have results. They need to make sure that they can track their goals, and they need to make sure that their goals are specific. I said specific, but are I forgot what the T. I think the T is they can track them, whatever the case may be. I may be bunching the acronym up, but there is an acronym for SMART. And in a nutshell, you can't just throw a goal out and just say, yeah, I just want to do that. You know what I mean? I just want to do this. You have to be able to really, it's sort of just like prayer, you know what I mean? Asking you receive, and your joy be complete type stuff. You don't know what you're asking for, so you're not gonna get it. You don't know what you're striving for, so you're not gonna achieve it. You know what I mean? You gotta be able to really quantify your goals and make them make sense. And in some cases, that's exactly why a mentor is important, because even if you don't know what the concept of a SMART goal is, you have a mentor who is going to push you in the direction of specifying what it is that you're trying to do. And they'll be able to call you on your BS, where it's like, that's your goal. You don't even go to school. What you mean that's your goal? And you know what I mean? Either
Hmm.
readjust your focus, or, you know what I mean? Get right and do the things that are going to put you in that direction. It's, it's, it's so hard to quantify wanting to get into professional sports without really realizing, like, yo, you gotta do your 10,000 hours in early. You know what I mean? Somebody be
Hmm.
like, I want to play, be in the NBA or whatever. Like, man, you want to be in the NBA and all you watch is NBA players? I heard Derrick Rose one time say he ain't even watch Michael Jordan. He was always practicing. I was like, damn, that's crazy. And I used to love basketball as a kid. I still like or love it now, but here I am watching the playoffs. Of course, I'm well past the age of trying to be a professional basketball player, but I say all that to say, like, whatever it is that you want to do, the message we should be having to a kid, a reentrant, or you know what I mean, an aspiring entrepreneur is you should be in the mud with whatever you're doing all day, all night. And there's no way you won't be successful when you set that goal because you always working towards it. And you always are lining up how you measure out your progress as opposed to just working tirelessly or saying this is what you want to do and it's just whimsical. You know what I mean? You gotta really, really get to the nitty gritty of every little detail of, what success looks like.
I think that when I think back on my youth, and when people say you could do this, you could do that, and a lot of times I'll be like, I don't believe that shit. Like I don't believe I could do that. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
And
right.
my definition of a goal was something that was just like a far out. Like it was a goal and it could have been achieved, but it would have took so much work to get to that goal, right? And so it becomes very discouraging. I think what helps what goals if you make shorter goals, smaller goals, and you accomplish those, and the more you accomplish the smaller goals, the closer you get to that long-term goal as well. And then things you start believing that those things that you are looking for, striving for, are very obtainable. They're very
Right.
obtainable, as opposed to they have you have to like leapfrog, or you have to take that old school game, Mother May I, can I take baby steps? So you have to take like the baby steps before you can do
Facts.
the real jump like that. The baby steps to get you to your goal,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to just trying to take one big leap and get to that goal that's out there. Could it be done? Yeah, but it got to be done like you said. Just focus in the mud. Don't do nothing but just think about that, and everything you do is towards that goal. It's kind of like
Hmm.
Kobe Bryant. Like they said, Kobe Bryant never went to a party. When people was out partying, he was in the gym. You
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
understand what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
it's that kind of dedication and that kind of fortitude that you need to get through something that you really want. How bad do you want it? And what are
Yeah.
you willing to do to get it? You understand what I'm saying?
Hmm.
So I think
Hmm.
that mentors can help with those too. Like you said, your mentor will keep you honest. Like, nah, bro, you ain't gonna do that. Bro, how you say you want to do this, but you ain't even doing that. You ain't doing. You want to do. You want to drive a truck, but you ain't even got your car license. Start get
Yeah,
your
Yeah.
yeah.
permit first.
It's
Yeah.
that
Start with your
simple.
permit. You got to
It's
start
that
with your
simple.
permit, then get your license, then have somewhat of a clean driving abstract, then go ahead after your CDLs. I'm not saying that you can't do it, but you first got to start and take the initiative of doing. Get your permit first. You got
Yeah.
a bus card, talk about you're gonna be a CDL driver.
Yeah.
Yeah, facts.
And never
And before you
forget.
go, real quick, Mill, and another thing, my philosophy with the program for reentrants and for kids, really, it was really is really simple. It's like I'm not a friend, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I always thought as a conversationalist and someone who just didn't want to talk about things without substance, because I had these conversations growing up. This is how me and my dad kicked it. You know what I mean? This is how we still kick it. It's how I kick it with Mill from time to time when, when we can, converse. But more than anything, it's just a lot of people don't have that sounding board of just
Hmm.
like, hey, this is where I'm at. You know what I mean? I just need you to hear me out. Or do you have any advice for me? And I always felt like, man, I would love to be able to quantify that into something that I could do for a living. And here I am, crazily enough, with I have this opportunity that I want to grow. And it starts with me and I want to grow it out, but I got to make sure the people that I am pulling into that from a volunteer capacity or as I grow the business are really about what it is that, I'm trying to do from that standpoint of like what's on my heart. Because it's really as easy as like, I help some of these guys and they're like, oh, thanks for helping, somebody like me or just like caring. It's like, oh, I'm just talking to you. You know what
Hmm.
I mean? I'm
Hmm.
talking to you and I'm hearing what you need and I'm seeing how I can help, I would do that for anybody. You know what I mean? It's really not that challenging. Yo, you just trying to get on your feet. You need to help follow up with this. Boom. Have you thought about this? Yo, you going through this. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to help you and motivate you through this time that might be dark and trying for you. Let me give you some words of encouragement. Here you go. And then I take that model and then I just qualify that with, all right, I am becoming an expert in this actual area. So you can go here, here, and here because these places will connect you. But before I even got to that understanding that I'm still trying to grow, it's really just the humanity of, you could hit me up, and if there's anything that I could do or I could say to help you, I got you. That's really all it is. And it's even easier for kids because there's nothing that you don't know that a kid doesn't know. You know
Mhm.
what I mean? It gets a little more challenging as they get older and they get a little more specific about what they want. Like, I don't know anything about law, but I went to school with people who had become lawyers. So if I got someone who says that they want to be a lawyer, it's just as simple as me saying, hey, could you reach out to this kid? This is what one of their goals are. But it's that simple. It's really that simple.
And I'm gonna add on. I know we're about to be pressed for time, but so what you're saying, and what Republicans saying is a mentor, and is in other words, it could be a greater supporter. So when people say they don't have a support system, you have a mentor.
That's a
So you
fact.
do
Facts.
some sort of a support system. But I look at everything that we just talked about, everything that you do, Khalif, you have young children. How do you manage giving time? Because we all say charity starts at home. So how is it you're able
Man.
to give so much to others and still have to have the energy? You have two young kids, so like two
Yeah.
young children. So how are you able to balance that and still be a husband, a father, and a mentor? You're a mentor at home and you're a mentor outside.
Uh,
How
That's a great question.
you
That's a great question, and that's the most challenging thing, which is why I sort of pivoted to the reentry community, and not to sound like a snob, but the reentry community, because I have that contract, is where I focused and put my pivot for the program right now, because I'm able to kind of do things that would afford me the possibility to make things work for my family right now, because I'm obviously wanting to grow the program, but of course I have to find a way to make a living on top of the work that I am doing as a director of student services. So I say all that to say, in terms of working with the kids, I usually try to do a lot of outreach and work with students that I either used to teach or other kids that could use, my mentoring heart. You know what I mean? But now I'm like, as a director of student services at a school, I focus on the kids that I'm working with at that school because I'm in a leadership role and I'm seeing them as my mentees right now. And from the reentry community side of things, I'm trying to continue to build out this curriculum where it's asynchronous and they can do some of the work on their own. You know what I mean? They can look up the resources, they can, find the answers that they need with the curriculum that I build, while also reaching out to them, throughout the week and daily, from a standpoint of like, if you need me, I'm available, text, email, phone call, and I check in on them. But it's really hard juggling all of that while obviously making sure I'm not taking time away from my kids and from my wife. And she's really been a sound barrier for me in the lanes that I create for myself, because I have to make sure that I am not spiraling without compensating my family first. So I'm just trying to carve out times where I'm focused on this at this time and I'm put it down. You know what I mean? Easier said than done, because especially as an entrepreneur, you got to eat, sleep, and breathe your business.
Correct.
But she really helped me understand that, if I don't put these things in parameters now, when I am super successful with it, you're not gonna just stop doing that. You
Right.
know what I mean? So
Right.
you have to, yes, eat, sleep, breathe your business, learn and read up on the things, but you also have to create the parameters for yourself as you're building, because you're never just gonna, it's just like marriage, you know what I mean? It's like you don't arrive at being a wife after you get married if you just been tricking all your life, and then you put the ring on and then you got married and it's just like, now I'm domesticated, I cook, I do all the things. Like, nah, you are who you were before you got there. And I try to apply that same philosophy to divvying up my time with my family. Like, I keep them as my priority, and I try to, while I'm at work, I'm multitasking out the wazoo. You know what I mean? I'll give myself a few hours on a Saturday, on the weekend. And then for the most part, try to keep the main thing the main thing. And that's the family first. You know what I mean? Easier said than done, but that's always the goal. You know what I mean? I got to keep reminding myself that the entire reason that I'm doing this is, yes, to make legacy and to make a way for my family. But at any point, if this is coming in between me and time for my family, I got to scale back. You know what I mean?
I think the best answer to Mill's question, a jam question, would have been, I'm still trying to figure it out, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
yeah.
day
yeah,
to
yeah.
day, day to day, things change, things happen. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Just one last question for me
Hmm.
is that at one point I used to work with like reentry as well, right?
Hmm.
And reentry, that could be anywhere age range for someone 18 to somebody 65 years old, right?
Facts.
And the thing that it kind of blew me away was to understand that some of these guys just didn't understand the basics. Like,
Yeah.
I think the basics is what they need, and the basics is where they lacked at.
Hmm.
And the reason why they didn't have, like, the reason why they're in the position they're in now is because they lack just some of the basics. Do you
Hmm.
Mhm.
find that to be um like, I guess, getting into it, did that kind of like trip you out? But like, whoa, did he just ask me that? Or whoa, am I really going over this with this person? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
you find that kind of did working with reentry, did you find that a little bit mind
Crazy
boggling?
enough, crazy enough, I haven't had any of the situations where it was like they didn't understand the basics. It was a matter of like applying it, you know what I
Right,
mean? And
right.
I got to know, a few of them. My caseload hasn't been like too big. It's like 6 months at a time, and then I either ask for an extension with them or not. But like the most eye-opening thing to me really was me just being able to help. I'm only 38. Me being able to help someone like my dad's age, you know what I mean? Where
Mm-hmm.
he's really cleaving to me, just kind of helping him get over just that debilitating feeling of helplessness a little bit, where it's just like I can't see from A to B
Okay.
right now.
Pause right there, Khalif. When you say he give the age, don't
Oh,
say
so he's like,
that.
yeah, he's mid
Don't know
50s. He's
your
guy
dad.
was Yeah, right, right, right. The guy was like in his mid 50s, and just very thankful for me to kind of help him see through a time where he's like, man, I don't even know which way is up right now. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to figure that out. I'm working through this. I came home to a situation where me and, the woman that I'm with is she's saying that she's trying to be helpful and that she's there for me, but she really not. And I got my own struggles going on, and I'm trying to get out of here. I'm trying to figure this out, trying to figure that out. And he just was in a dark space. You know what I mean? And just being able to qualify to him like, yo, look, I never been arrested. I haven't been to jail, but I've been in a dark place before. You know what I mean? I know what it's
Mm-hmm.
like to not know how to maneuver or feel like I can't get out of the situation that I'm in. So just being able to minister, for lack of a better phrase, to him about my experience It's like I don't have to have been through what you went through. You know what I mean? He used drugs and all the things. I come from a family of drug users, so I can't tell you that I know what that experience is like in those facets. But I can tell you that I know what it's like to be where you were, like right there. And all you got to do is, I'm telling you, you can lean on me, hit me up. I'm going to keep giving you words of encouragement. I'm going to keep giving you some advice about how you're doing more than you think you're doing. And then before long, you know what I mean? You're going to be like, yo, how did I get here? And that was like one of my greatest success stories of him telling me, he got it going. He found his transitional housing spot. He did the things, and I'm like, yo, I ain't really do nothing that much special, but let you know, yo, you can do this. Let me look into this for you. I'm gonna follow up. I'm gonna check on you. I'm gonna do the things. And when he reported about like, finding a new person, transitional housing, getting a good job, getting another job, all the things, I'm just like, yo, that's great. And I don't take credit for none of that. I'm just happy to hear that the guy, what I mean, got through that time. But it could be that simple. You know what I mean? So
I think too, exactly, as I'm hearing the story about this young man, and it sounds like to me what he was trying to do, he was trying to boil the ocean. The ocean is too big for you to boil. You just got to take out a little bit of water at a time and boil it piece by piece, meaning that you
mhm,
just have to take one situation at a time and finish that, right? And then move on to the next situation, right? So whether it's I need to find transitional housing, one. I need to find a job. Two, right? I need to get rid of this relationship. Three, I need to find another relationship. Four,
Mm.
right? You just constantly just as opposed to trying to tackle all of that on at one time, you never it'll burn you out and it'll blow your brain out at the
mhm.
Which,
same
which,
time. You know what I'm
which is
saying?
what you said, building short term goals. The short term
Short
goals
Exactly.
term good. Yeah.
Exactly.
overall.
Exactly. That's the point. But
So,
man, it was awesome talking to you. I think what you got is amazing. I wish you nothing but success. I hope you keep continue to move forward. I can be retained for consultant fee. We could always discuss that offline if need be. If need be.
I'm about to
But
hit
I
you up for a donation. You talking about a consultant fee. I need a sponsorship, a diamond sponsorship package. I'm looking for
so
you
that was
Republican Lou. I need $1 million.
so that was my question. How can anyone be a part of the journey? Grayson scholarships. That's like via donations, partnerships. Give out
Yeah.
your information.
Yeah, so graysonscholars.org, and we have, the ways that you can give there. I'm currently in the process of getting back our 501c3 status because again, I've been, one-stop shop with me building things out. So always looking for, volunteers and, people just to give to, the cause. But graysonscholars.org, GREYSONSCHOLARS.org. And you could check out the program, see what we all about there, see the things that we've done. And when you go to the give tab, you'll see right there, and you can contribute how you will. But I'm definitely just accepting prayers and good wishes. If you got no money to give, you know what I mean, hit me
I
up.
was just about to donate till I went to the gas pump, and that was
For
He
yeah,
had to,
man.
he
that
had
did
Tell
it right there.
hey,
That did it right
tell
there.
your president to stop talking about the street being open, man. Hey, you got $1 million, man. You a Republican. That's a conversation for another day, man. I
That's a
gotta get
fact.
back on
That's a fact. That's a fact.
here.
That's a fact.
Yo,
But
listen, I don't have a get your shit together, my guys. I don't know if you guys do, but if not, then we can agree. We can all agree to tell everybody to get their shit together and to give back.
that's it.
That's a fact.
All hearts and minds are clear, and we out.
We out. Salute.